What's going on, everyone? Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of the Ducks Dish podcast. I'm your host, Max Torres with Scoop Duck on 3, coming to you on Monday, September 1st, 2025, with an upon further review. Number 7 Oregon defeats Montana State 59-13 in Eugene to kick off the 2025 season with a major win. And joining me to break it all down is Scoop Duck owner and publisher Justin Hopkins. J-Hop, how are you?
Good, yeah. Happy Labor Day to everybody, and what a fun weekend of college football. Obviously, Oregon played tons of other great games, and we still got one more tonight. Watching the Bill Belichick debut in North Carolina. So, fun opening weekend of college football, which to me really kind of proves the point. I think college football should start earlier, but that's a topic for another time.
Yeah, I think no one's really going to be against getting football sooner. I think when you're dragging through the offseason, you're always down to get some more ball, but you just got to roll with it. And football is back, so we can definitely be happy about that. I still have a lot of catching up to do from this weekend. You guys were holding down the fort for me while I was at a wedding, so I really appreciate that. Congrats to Breck and Haley if you guys are listening to this. But that was a lot of fun. And we've already seen some pretty big performances in the opening weekend, right? Last night you had Miami gutting it out against Notre Dame, and then you also had Florida State upsetting Alabama. And I know their fans are definitely having some fruitful discussions, should we say, this morning. But there's a lot to talk about, and I'm glad that football's back.
Yeah, I mean, it was a phenomenal opening weekend, and I think one thing folks should be appreciative of is the fact that with the expanded playoff, Florida State or Bama or Texas or Ohio State, pick your big game. We can now afford to see those early week matchups because the loser of those games, still has a path to the playoff. Whereas, before, obviously, if you lost a game, it more than likely pushed you out of playoffs. So I think, we do focus on the negatives a lot, but that's a big positive that we were able to see this weekend, and something that I think will continue because, once again, like I said, you can lose a game or two now and still make the playoff. And I think because of that, we'll see these schools go ahead and take on some of these bigger matchups.
Yeah, I'm all for the big heavy hitter matchups. I kind of had a feeling that Texas Ohio State wasn't going to be maybe all it was cracked up to be, with both of those teams breaking in new starting quarterbacks. But enough talk about the big picture, Justin. Let's get to what everyone came here for. Let's talk about this Ducks game. Oregon just came out firing right off of the jump, and there's a lot of different areas we can go here. But maybe just because I'm working on a story for it right now over at Scoop Duck, we can talk about a little bit of the defense, because they had one goal going into that game, and it was to stop the run. And I think saying that they did that is probably an understatement, with Montana State running for only 46 yards on the day. This is a team that averaged almost 300 yards a game last year on the ground, had a near 1,200 yard rusher and Adam Jones back for another season. And gosh, it was just a long day for them at the office offensively.
Yeah, I just, for starters, I'll love the way that this team was focused, on both sides of the ball, but on defense. They came out with an agenda. Obviously, the first couple drives really set the tone for the game. And I think this is an area that maybe, we've talked about it. Dan Lanning, as a young coach, does have some things that he still needs to learn along the way, which we're clearly not picking on Dan, but let's be fair. And I think, the way Oregon opened the season last year versus Idaho, and maybe that lack of focus, that was not apparent this year. They clearly did something, whether it's just the team, whether it's the makeup, whether there are certain things that they implemented that worked. Oregon came out and knew that they should wax Montana State, and they didn't take it for granted. And that's probably the biggest thing I have for the team in general. For the defense, I think, really looking at what that defensive line group was going to be able to do in terms of stopping the run. That was one of my big questions heading into the week. I felt good about the defensive line. I knew it was a good unit, but I really wanted to see, because Jamari Caldwell, Derek Harmon, those guys were really good in that area last year, and they're gone. We knew Amari Washington was going to be a freak and going to be something to contend with, but would that translate into his ability to stop the run? And boy, did it ever. Those guys did a tremendous job. Tion Gray did a good job. Bear Alexander got some reps. Aiden Breland was out there. All those guys were worked through. Terrence Green were worked through at certain points, and it didn't matter. It didn't matter. Oregon was able to be disruptive and stop the run, and just a really strong defensive performance. Did Montana State have three points at the half? I believe. I think they scored their touchdown in the second half. So obviously, if you kind of just look at that, they played a clean game, and not a lot of penalties either on either side of the ball, but not a lot of penalties on the defense either.
Yeah, Ducks were up 38-3 at the half, so just an utter domination in the first half, and then really didn't let their foot off the gas too terribly much in the second half. Obviously, getting up to that grand total of 59 points. To your point, really clean game from the Ducks, and I think that speaks just how locked in they were. 3 total penalties for 29 yards on the day. I think that was something that you're looking for every week, and you didn't see a ton of missed tackles. I think you played a fairly fundamentally sound game. Those pop up every now and then, but I think a lot of Duck fans are probably just a little intrigued if Lanning was going to be able to have these guys locked in after what felt like a pretty significant letdown, to say the least, against Idaho last year. I mean, we can say all we want that they went on to have a solid season, but I just feel like the gap in talent was definitely pretty pronounced. So you expected more from Oregon in week 1 last year than you got, but they really delivered, I think, to all the expectations. And you saw a lot of the young guys that were playing early, particularly in that secondary, right? Justin, you and I had been reporting over on Scoop Duck all throughout fall camp that Brandon Finney was making noise. Naeem Offord is a guy you're probably going to see a good amount of. Aaron Flowers was someone who flashed as well out there in the secondary. So I was really glad to see them step up and get some really good reps, because even though this wasn't a pass-heavy attack, the Ducks stopped the run so well that the Bobcats actually did pass more than they ran when you look at the game at large.
Well, and I think, that's something Montana State probably said, well, screw it. We're down 30 points or 40 points or whatever it was. Let's try some stuff out. And Oregon was probably, I think Oregon would be better prepared for an opponent that has a passing element in there. I think the defensive backs did a pretty good job with that, considering. But I think it's very clear Oregon was like, hey, we need to stop the run with these guys. That's the game plan with Montana State. And it's really hard. Everybody says, well, you should have changed mid-game. Well, if you go into a game with a game plan and it's a focus on stopping the run, and it's the first game of the season, you don't just throw it out the window and say, hey, let's drop into, quarters or nickel or something for the rest of the game. So, you take that as it comes. I'm not going to get too knee-jerk about, some of those crossing patterns that they were able to execute against Oregon. I think heading into this season, we had questions about the linebacker group. I think those questions are fair and still probably a little bit out there. I don't think it's a complete liability, but I think if you look at, how you rank these units on the team, whether it's on defense or offense or all together, I would say linebackers probably, towards the bottom of the list, which is hard to fathom because obviously Devin Jackson's a returner, Bryce Betcher's a returner, going to be a leader there. But this group kind of lacks I would say maybe a true playmaker. Love both those guys and respect them, but Jerry Mixon was a bright spot there. I think he's still got a little bit of growing to do. But as we reported, on Scoop Duck for weeks now, Jerry Mixon was going to be in the mix and going to be a guy, and he certainly was. I don't think there was a start or a contributor that should have shocked anybody that's been reading Scoop Duck for the last couple of weeks. We had all of that stuff nailed. Talking about Iuli versus Bedford there at that right guard spot. Talking about Aaron Flowers probably starting opposite the NMN and Jaden Kennedy being the star. All those things we mentioned. Brandon Finney being a guy that we weren't sure that would start, but we knew would play a lot. Obviously, with Theron Johnson out, I think that totally cleared the path for him. Not that Theron would have started over him, but I think there's a little bit of a battle there. But in any event, we did a great job covering it. It was good to see all those guys, all the reps, the defense, and hopefully this next week against OK State, who's probably a little more pass heavy than run heavy. Now we'll kind of get to see that side of the defense.
It was fun for me, Justin, to watch this game, and I guess just like as a reporter, like see the intel kind of play out in real time. So to your point, I mean, if you guys are watching us on YouTube or listening to us here on the podcast, like come join the party. Come and hang with us at scoopduck.com. I want to say the promo is still going. I need to double check that to be 100% certain, but I believe the promo is still going. You can get started for $1 and you'll get a complimentary year of The Athletic as well. So there's no better time than now because football season's back and recruiting will get jumping before you know it, and there's going to be some developments here and there. I feel like that Justin and I always sink our teeth into. So come and see us at Scoop Duck if you haven't already. We'd love to have you along for the ride that is the 2025 season. I don't have a whole lot more to add on defense, Justin. I think that I would maybe just talk about how exciting it was to see Nasir Wyatt out there as a true freshman. He was one of the guys that was credited with one of Oregon's 3 sacks on the day. It was a Trinity League showcase with Mateo Uiagalelei getting 2 sacks of his own to start the year. 7 total tackles for loss for this Oregon defense. So they were in that Montana State backfield early and often, and they played a pretty clean game. So aside from what Taco Dowler was able to do on a majority of those crossing routes, like you mentioned, I think you walk away pretty satisfied with how this defense looked.
Yeah, I don't even recall Brandon Finney defending a pass. Like, I'm not even sure that anybody threw a ball his direction in that game. And that could probably be said, but you got to keep in mind, these guys got 3 sacks and 7 tackles for loss on very, very limited passing, opportunities. It's not like Montana State was dropping back to pass the ball a lot. Those pressures were on very few opportunities. So really pleased with that. And like you said, I mean, here's the deal. This is going to be the overarching theme, not just when we're talking about defense. This was game 1. I mean, that's basic. We basically just saw the floor of this Oregon team, not the ceiling, the floor. Like, if that's the floor of this Oregon team, we're in really good shape. And I think that's the key takeaway for me is, sure, there are things to clean up. They weren't perfect. It was a great performance. I'm sure the staff is going back to the drawing board saying, good job, guys. But now we got to take that next step because, Team X over there is going to take that next step. And Team X over there, we got to do the same thing. So, that now becomes the hard part for the coaches is to continue cleaning up any missed tackles or missed assignments. Linebackers were, lost in coverage a time or two. I'm sure there's some stuff up front on the defensive line, although they performed well. I'm sure the staff saw some things there that they need to clean up. So just continuing to fine tune those things. Like I said, if this is the floor of that Oregon defense and that Oregon team, we're in for a really strong season.
It felt like there was still so much that we could see, so many guys that we've talked about, but maybe didn't see a whole lot of. I loved how much they rotated along the defensive line. I think that was really encouraging, especially with all the young guys that are stepping into larger roles there. We'll see how Barry Alexander factors into this defensive line. We didn't see too much of him on Saturday, but he was out there. So it's just a matter of shuffling the pieces these first couple of weeks and figuring out what that true, top rotation is for the Ducks. Before we continue here on the pod, got a new sponsor that I'm really excited to welcome to the pod, and that is the Oakway Lifestyle Center. Duck fans, are you going to an Oregon game this season? If you are, the Oakway Lifestyle Center at the corner of Oakway and Coburg is the destination for Duck fans. Whatever you're looking for, they've got it all. Get a bite to eat at Sun River Brewing or PF Chang's. Check out shops like Lululemon or Nordstrom Rack. Need a place to stay? Book your lodging at the Hyatt Place at the Oakway Center and visit their rooftop bar. The Oakway Lifestyle Center is walking distance from Autzen Stadium, has something for everybody, and is a great post-game place to celebrate another Duck victory. Max Torres and Justin Hopkins here with you on the Ducks Dish podcast on a Monday morning following Oregon's Week 1 victory over Montana State. Glad to have you guys along. Week 2 is about to get underway here as the Ducks prep for Oklahoma State coming to town in Week 2. Justin, let's talk about the offense a little bit here for Oregon. The Dante Moore era is officially underway. The former 5-star quarterback and redshirt sophomore got his first start with the Ducks. And man, I think he looked great. Finishing the day with 3 touchdowns to his name. Really looked composed out there. 18 for 23 with 213 yards. Wasn't sacked, so that's a nod to the offensive line and their abilities as well. So let's just kind of start to dig into the offense here.
Yeah, I mean, let's be real. That honestly was a perfect start for Dante Moore. And yeah, maybe he made mistakes, left some things on the table, but even Dan Lennon acknowledged in his press conference, there was a play where, Dante basically ate the ball instead of forcing a throw across the middle or something that could have, taken points off the board for Oregon. Obviously didn't matter against Montana State given the score, but those are things coaches see and go, yeah, man, he's learning, he's getting in. So it's just all those things that Dante did. Basically, really a near perfect game. I totally understand who the opponent was and how, overmatched they were against Oregon. But he did what he needed to do. And what I mean from that and what I glean from that is that he was very concise with distributing the ball. We saw so many different hands touch the football in that game. And it was obviously not just so many running backs. It was so many, pass catchers too. And so to me, that meant that he was really comfortable in that offense and really probably feels even more comfortable now knowing, hey, I don't got to be the guy. I don't got to go pick up this third down. I don't got to go get 6 or 7 yards because it falls on me. I got Kenyon Sadiq and Malik Benson and Decorian Moore and all these weapons around me. I just need to get them the football. And one thing that I love about the way he gets the football out, when he decides where he's going with that ball, it is there. I mean, if there's a window, he's lasering that ball through it, and the defense has very little time to react to that. And I think that's a little bit different than maybe Bo Nix and Dylan Gabriel. Those guys obviously very efficient with the football, great quarterbacks. But the arm strength of Dante Moore was on display, not so much that he was heaving 70-yard bombs, just that when he made his decision, he was whipping that thing through tight windows. I recall one of the plays, he was leaning back and still whipped the football with, right on a rope. And it's like, man, this guy's just got elite arm talent. So loved it. I know he ran the ball. I think my favorite moment was when he ran the ball on the first drive. I think he got 5 or 6 yards or whatever the case was. But, Dante popped up and kind of did one of these things, and he's not really an emotional guy. And I just kind of went, yeah, I think he's got it, right? I mean, like, he's got it. He's feeling good. Just to me, I think it was a great performance. And if that's the floor of Dante Moore, that's the floor. The ceiling's looking really, really high.
You'll take that floor 7 days a week if you're just about any college football team. And I know Will Stein had to be happy with what he saw from his starting quarterback on Saturday out there in Eugene. I don't think that he made a ton of wow throws, but just the efficiency and the composure and, knowing what to do. I want to say there was a play where he checked the offensive line into something different and it netted some positive yards. So I need to watch the tape a little bit more there, but he just looked like he was super comfortable out there. And I think that you could see the growth in obviously what we saw from him at UCLA and then even from the spring game, I guess. I think that some people weren't super wowed about his spring game performance. And I think you just have to take the spring game with a grain of salt. But love what we saw from Dante. This running back room is insane. I mean, I had people telling me that, this fall camp, this legitimately might be a 7 deep room. And obviously you can't get all those guys carries every game, but what wasn't surprised to see Noah Whittington be the guy that got the first touch. Was excited to see Jaden Lamar get the first touchdown of the season for the Ducks. I think that Oregon feels like it's a pretty big luxury that they still have him on this roster. I have said on this podcast before, I thought he was going to transfer, but he's stuck around and looks like he's going to be a contributor for Oregon this year. Both De'Aaron Hill and Jordan Davison had a good little showing to get things going this year. Jordan Davison got a trio of touchdowns as a true freshman, and there were some flashes from De'Aaron Hill out of the backfield as well. So, I mean, this room is just nasty from top to bottom. Jay Harris had a great catch and run as well, someone that we didn't hear from too much last year. But I know a lot of fans on the message boards were pretty shocked with Mekhi Hughes and how little carries he got. So I don't know. Was that something that kind of stuck out to you, or what did you kind of make of the running backs?
I think in terms of him not being the starter, I was not shocked at all. I think we talked up Noah Whittington quite a bit, and Warren fans hey, Noah's looking really good out there. We talked about De'Aaron Hill. We knew Dink Riggs was going to be good. None of that surprised me. I would say, in fairness, I think how many carries Mekhi did get and how few probably surprised me a little. I expected him to probably be somewhere in that, 2-3 range and probably and get, a half dozen carries. I don't like, what do you do in this game, right? Anybody who touches the ball as a running back was experiencing success. So, like, who did you see in the game that you need to take carries away from and give to Mekhi Hughes? Like, how much better is he going to be than anybody who like De'Aaron Hill touched the ball, and I was like, oh yeah, you can see why he was getting hyped in fall camp. Like, I know it was only a handful of carries. I think he had
5.
You could see, like, you're like, oh, that kid's got it. Jordan Davidson probably surprised me a little. We'd heard about him. You'd reported on him and talked about him. 3 touchdowns is 3 touchdowns. I don't care how he gets them, but you're talking about a guy that, as a true freshman, they feel ultimately confident in, saying, hey, this is going to be our fall forward, make sure we get positive yardage, kind of short yardage guy. And he excelled at that. So I would say there's nothing that really, like, blew my mind. I do think how few Mekhi Hughes got was obviously alarming because everybody's talking about it. But again, who are you putting him in over right now? I mean, like, even Jaden Lamar, who kind of felt like he was probably going to be the low man on the pole, was the second guy in and got a touchdown, I believe, on his first carry. I mean, like, again, those things are working. Just, don't look a gift horse in the mouth is what I want to say there. So for fans that are, like, freaking out about Mekhi Hughes, why? Like, if he's good enough, he'll play. And if he's not going to beat out these other guys, it's not like Oregon's in bad shape. Every one of those guys looked legit. So I think for me, Oregon's ability and effectiveness running the football is going to fall more on the offensive line than it is going to be at the ability of the running back in the backfield on that certain play.
Every running back was doing well, to your point, Justin. So it's like, as long as the position's doing well and the ball is moving down the field, that's all that really matters, I feel like. So that's a group that I'm incredibly excited about this year. The offensive line, we got to give them a shout out. No sacks on the day for the Montana State defense. Oregon averaged 6.5 yards a pop in the run game. So really efficient numbers from them. They did have I don't even think I would really call it a hiccup, but like one notable story from that was from Saturday was Dave Aiuli starting at right guard, I think, and then Emmanuel Pregnon getting knocked out of the game with a little bit of a leg injury, I think. But I'm still trying to work the phones a little bit to get an update on that, but it doesn't seem like the immediate return on Pregnon is negative. Like, I think maybe he could have come back in the game if they needed him to. But because he wasn't in street clothes or anything when he came back out of the locker room, which I think is typically a good sign. And I liked how you saw Oregon navigate that. I think Kavika Rogers came in a little bit, but then what they ended up doing was moving Dave to left guard, and then they brought Bedford in at right guard, and that obviously worked pretty well for them. So it wasn't a perfect game from them by any means, but after the issues that you saw last year out of the gate, snapping issues, just playing as one, gelling, like that was the big storyline that we've been just hammering on all offseason. And I mean, it kind of sounds cliche, but it's also reasonable with a group that has 4 new starters, but they didn't miss a beat, and props to Alik Terry and the law firm.
Yeah, I didn't. They've got some things to clean up. I was a lot more impressed overall with that group in pass protection than run protection. If you go back and look, some of the big runs were really just like super athletic running backs. I think the first one that Noah Whittington, the big run to the right, really wasn't where he was supposed to go, but the line collapsed and he saw an opening to the right and he took it. So you just like trying to be objective. I'm not picking on the offensive line, not saying they were horrible. There's just things for them to clean up. And I agree with your point. If you are in a game and you're going to see a couple guys go out dinged up, again, I don't think either one of them, Kavika Rogers got dinged up a little bit too, along with Emmanuel Pregnon. I don't think either one of them missed game 2. And if they do, it's purely precautional, not worried about them in the slightest. I think they could have played if it was a Penn State game or something of that caliber. But if they did miss this next week, I think you can win without them. Best part is, though, those are real game experiences that the staff needed to learn from and had the opportunity to learn from at not a huge cost, right? Obviously, you want Emmanuel Pregnon out there as much as you can have him out there. But in this case, he got knocked out for a bit and you had to adjust. It was good to see them adjust. It was good to see there wasn't a big fall off. That's the kind of stuff that really has a huge value to these coaches in a game like this. Like, okay, we did face a real, scenario that we might need to navigate down the road. How'd we do? And they can look at some of those things. So those are the things we need to take away. Again, I think this group wasn't a liability. I think there was some really good moments, but overall, I think there's a lot of things that this group can clean up, which is what we expected, right? We expected 4 new people on the offensive line to start this season. You're going to have some growing pains. And so, I will say something that I've said already. This group at this point versus the group last year at the same point is better. They're playing better football. So again, talking about the floor, if that's the floor of the offensive line, that's a pretty good floor. I think you'll take that all day long. If they can progress in these next 3 weeks, you're a 20-something point favorite over Oklahoma State. You're going to be a 20-something point favorite over Northwestern. You're going to probably be a 57-point favorite over Oregon State. I mean, those are 3. Like calling them winnable games is even just not even doing them justice. So you should be able to continue to adjust these things, rotate guys, and get a lot of good things on film so that when you get to Penn State, you're not only hitting your stride, you're also ready for scenarios that could come up in that game as well.
Love that stuff, Justin. Good points there on the offensive line and kind of their early growth here to start the season. We have to talk a little bit more about the skills maybe to wrap us up today because, man, it felt like it was hurdle palooza out there. Kenyon Sadiq had himself quite a hurdle. Phenomenal pictures, by the way, from Scoop Duck photographer Max Unkrich. I mean, I was living vicariously through his photos as I was looking through them, traveling back to Long Beach yesterday, and just phenomenal work. And we have a photo gallery over on Scoop Duck, so our subscribers are loving those that they've been seeing since I posted up that one yesterday. But Kenyon looked great. He had a touchdown, not a ton of touches, but I mean, he had that grown man touchdown where the defender was on him right away when he caught the ball, but just absolutely shoved him off like it was nothing, and then just sprinted his way into the end zone. Decoria Moore got a couple touches. Was used on a little end around jet sweep. He also had a hurdle of his own. And I think you saw enough from some of these newer weapons. Malik Benson, I thought, was the biggest surprise of the day. I think that was awesome for him, leading the team with 5 catches. And he also found his way into the end zone. So for him, I think it was great to kind of have a little bit of a confidence building game, just given how his kind of trajectory and his journey has gone leading up to his time at Oregon. And then Gary Bryant Jr. back healthy for the first time since 2023. He also found the end zone where Decoria Moore had one of the many highlights of the day and just absolutely pile driving his defender, the wrong guy, but pile driving a defender into the ground. I think that there was a lot to be excited about from the skill guys.
Yeah, Kenyon Sadiq's going to continue to get more touches. Obviously wasn't needed a ton in this game, but you saw what he's capable of, and which we knew. We knew that was going to happen, but it was nice to see it still. I was hoping to see a little bit more from Jamari Johnson. That might have been by design. It's also only one football that can go around, right? So by the time the running backs touch it and Sadiq touches it, it's only one. So I do think he'll continue to be more involved in the offense moving forward when it matters. Loved your point about Malik Benson. I thought that was a real bright spot and somebody that can, hopefully kind of continue to, be on that upward trajectory. I thought his touchdown catch was a great. It was a dime from Dante, again, squeezing it into a tight circle. Malik, give him credit for, focusing on that football and catching it. GBJ, Gary Bryant Jr., loved seeing him out there kind of looking back into some of his, older form pre-injury. So if you kind of start talking about those 3 guys, obviously Decoria Moore, I think we just scratched the surface there. I think the staff just kind of wanted to get his feet wet a little bit and maybe use a little bit of, hey, man, if you get out there and block, we'll throw you the rock kind of motivation. So my guess is week 2, Decoria Moore sees a little bit more of the football thrown his direction, given what he did in the blocking on Saturday. All those things were great. Cooper Perry got some time out there. And the one thing to me, I think that stood out more than anything, is I believe the only person that really dropped a catchable ball was Kenyon Sadiq. Like, I'm not picking on him, but I mean, if you look at the balls that were thrown at Cooper Perry and Malik Benson and Gary Bryant Jr. and Jeremiah Clellan, everybody that touched the football, I don't think any of them dropped a catchable pass. So, that to me is something that gives me a lot of, positivity or confidence in that group moving forward. And again, I think we will see more of Jamari Johnson when it's needed. And I think we got just a little bit of like a tease of what Decorian Moore is going to be all about. But again, that's what you do in these games. Next game, it might be two different guys because you decide, hey, we want to try and get these guys kind of going a little bit. And then against Northwestern, it'll be, hey, let's get these two guys going. And that's the beauty of this offense. There's so many weapons that, good luck guarding them all.
And that's what made the game so fun to watch, is that you kind of just got a little dose, a little tease of all these guys getting different touches. And that's also a credit to Dante Moore, just having the confidence to spread the ball around the way that he did. You also got to see Luke Moga get in there a little bit, as did Austin Novosad. So, I mean, maybe you'd want to see a little bit more of Novosad. I was hoping to see a bit more than just 2 passes from him, but the staff did a good job of just getting a lot of guys on the field. I know Doug Utu was out there a little bit as well along the offensive line. So much to be excited about. I mean, this is really what you want, I think, from a first game perspective, but in a different way. I think you'll have a bit more of a significant test this week against Oklahoma State, just in terms of the talent that you have there going from FCS to FBS.
Yeah, I'm with you. I kind of wondered coming out of halftime, would it be Austin Novosad time or Dante Moore time? And it's tough as you're the coach because, I mean, this is Dante's first year as the starter at Oregon, right? Had those handful of use. I'm not even counting that starts at UCLA, right? That was just kind of like a whatever. So you need to get him some time, but you also want to get Novosad out there. And you assume you're going to have those opportunities in the next couple games, but you never know. Like, you never know. And you might need, hey, we wish we would have gotten Dante some more reps in the last game because we need him more in this next game. You don't know. So I don't fault the staff. I'm sure they would have loved to get Novosad out there a little bit earlier and maybe use Luke Moga a little bit more. But hopefully those opportunities present themselves moving forward, because at the end of the day, you've got to get Dante Moore as many reps as you feel comfortable with. He's your guy. He's the guy that's got to get better out of the group. So you don't want to take too much away from him. It's a delicate balance. I still think they did a really good job with it. And hopefully they continue to have those opportunities the next few weeks, because that'll be fantastic for this team.
Well, there you have it, Justin. I feel like that's a good little spot to wrap here. Oregon gets it done 59-13 over Montana State to start the year. This week, they're back at home in Eugene at Autzen Stadium, September 6th against the Oklahoma State Cowboys. That game's at 12:30 p.m. Pacific, and it'll be on CBS. And this is our first game reaction pod of the year. We're going to have plenty more for you guys to tune into. So make sure you're following or subscribed wherever you get your podcasts, or if you're watching here on YouTube. And if you guys want to find more of Justin, follow him anywhere at JHopkinsSD. Find me at Torres Sports on all social media platforms. Come and see us at scoopduck.com. Join the party. Become a part of the community. A lot of big things going on at On3 and Rivals, and your subscription just keeps getting more and more valuable. Best bang for your buck that you're going to find. So Justin and I would love to have you along over there at scoopduck.com, and share the show. And we'll see you guys in the next episode of the Ducks Dish Podcast.